When one attempts to answer the question, what is literature? One is immediately confronted by its remarkable slipperiness. The term literature is invoked with a certain casualness in everyday language, and yet, within academic discourse, it remains contested, elusive, and, some would say, indefinable. The multiplicity of definitions reflects not only changing historical circumstances, but also the assumptions and aspirations of those who use the word. The earliest and perhaps broadest understanding of literature is etymological. Deriving from the Latin literatura, it refers simply to all written texts. In this view, literature encompasses everything from tax records to epic poems, placing the most mundane shopping list on the same continuum as the poetry of Shakespeare. Such democratic inclusivity, however, rapidly encounters challenges, for few would argue that an insurance policy and Pride and Prejudice belong to the same category of human creation. Consequently, critics have sought narrower definitions. One popular approach is to prioritize artistic intent or aesthetic quality, distinguishing literary works, novels, poems, plays, from non-literary writing, journalism, technical manuals, advertisements, on the basis of their primary function. A poem aims to elicit emotion or provoke thought through subtle language play. A user manual, on the other hand, seeks to instruct plainly. The Russian formalists of the early 20th century, such as Viktor Shklovsky, advanced this argument further, identifying defamiliarization, the making strange of the familiar, as the hallmark of literary language. From their perspective, what makes language literary is not what is said, but how it is said. Yet subsequent theorists, including the members of the New Criticism and then later movements such as structuralism, post-structuralism, and reader response theory, have repeatedly exposed the porosity of these boundaries. Roland Barthes famously claimed that literature cannot be simply defined by rules or even by its intrinsic qualities, but through a system of values and interpretations generated by society. In this view, what counts as literature is less a property of texts themselves and more an effect of social recognition and institutional power. The blurring of lines between literary and non-literary texts is further complicated in our contemporary moment. Where do graphic novels, blogs, or song lyrics belong? What about the speeches of politicians or the stories we tell each other in digital form? Each carries aesthetic value, complex structure, or cultural importance, and each may be declared literature or not, depending on the context in which it is received and discussed. Why, then, does the question matter? Defining literature is not simply an academic exercise. The boundaries drawn determine what texts are preserved, studied, canonized, and granted cultural authority. They shape what is taught in schools, what is awarded prizes, and ultimately, whose voices are heard. Questions of inclusion and exclusion therefore bear on wider debates about taste, culture, identity, and power. In sum, literature eludes easy definition. It may be constituted by its form, its function, or, as some suggest, by the social practices that sustain and value it. What is certain, however, is that by asking what literature is, we are also asking what we, as societies, value in language, expression, and collective experience. In the ongoing conversation about its limits and meaning, literature continues to define and redefine both itself and those who engage with it.